So in the first session, we saw how the tool has been launched now, and the next thing to do is for consumers to log in and check their business case and viability of the technical design as well. That is the consumer aspect of the tool, but there's another very interesting aspect which we want to discuss in this session, which is how do you use this tool to effectively aggregate demand for rooftop, especially if Bescom wants to go for a 1.06 gigawatt tender. Then it becomes important that the aggregation process is streamlined. So what this tool enabled us to do was that the 1076 square kilometers that we had covered, we found that there are around 3 lakh buildings with a combined capacity of 3.2 gigawatts with a CUF of more than 18%. So then what we did is we divided these buildings into size categories of 0 to 10, 10 to 50, and 50 and above. So we found that of the 3 lakh buildings, 2.2 lakh buildings fall in the 0 to 10 kilowatt category, which is essentially representative of domestic consumers and smaller rooftops. And our panelist here in the ensuing session, Mr. Harsha, will talk about how that is helpful for them and to other developers. But for now, I just want to show you how this tendering process might benefit from our aggregation process. So we divided in, let me just share my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes, Satvik.
Right. So as you can see, this is our area of coverage, and the blue boundaries denote the boundaries of the subdivisions of Bescom. So we have combined around 56 odd subdivisions, and we can check the capacity that has been identified in each subdivision. Now, how do we do that is we select any of the subdivisions from this drop down or from this map. So if I want to select Yelahanka, for example, and I click on submit, as you can see, there are around 21,000 rooftops with a capacity of 33 megawatts. In the 0 to 3 kilowatt range, the 3 to 10 kilowatt range, there are around 8,000 buildings with 41 megawatts. In the 10 to 50 kilowatt range, there's 2128 with 41 megawatts. And in the 50 and above, there's around 220 rooftops with 19 megawatt. Now, suppose I want to, as a developer, I want to see where these buildings are. So I choose the bigger ones and I click on submit. So this tool will now show you in the map where exactly all the identified buildings are and what are the capacities on each of them and their exact lat and long. So because it's such a heavy tool, it will take some time to load. So I please ask you to bear with me. In the meantime, I would like to tell you that what happens in this process is that when we work with IDAM and with the empanel developers, all developers can access this database for free. So they will know exactly which buildings to target and for customer acquisition. And we can also tell us where each of these buildings are, and once the tender is called, the Bescom plans to allocate all of these subdivisions to a certain set of developers. This is taking a bit longer than usual, so I think I will talk to my colleague here and try to fix it. In the meantime, I think instead of waiting and right, so they are loading. So Abhishek, do you want me to continue to load these, or do you want to move ahead with the other things in the session?
I think if it is loading, just zoom out and maybe you'll be able to see more rooftops.
Yes, that's true, but since the images are quite heavy, it will take a bit of time. So,
So
do you want to
yeah,
run some polls in between?
suppose I think let it load. Yeah.
Okay.
How many rooftops are there in this?
In total, there are, as I said in the previous screen,
151.
there were a lot of rooftops. So all of them will load.
Yeah, just zoom out. Yeah.
Okay, so the screen now shows you in this particular subdivision of Nagawara, there are around 151 identified rooftops in the 50 to 2000 kilowatt category with a total capacity of around 14 megawatts. So if I want to check the details of a single roof, for example, if I want to check for this building right here, I zoom in on it and it will go and process and show you the system size, which is possible at more than 18% CUF on this particular building. So this is a warehouse somewhere in the middle of the Nagawara thing, or this is a school, I think. So as you can see, you can put around 139 kilowatt on this with a minimum CUF of 22%, and the exact lat long is given along with the projected generation and the capital cost. Now, this is done for, as I said, so many of the buildings here. So what the developer has access to is this kind of database where they will know in each subdivision this breakup of the number of rooftops based on size categories and also the exact lat longs. Now, what we had wanted BESCOM to do in collaboration with EDAM to make this tool more comprehensive is that as of now,
Saptak lost your voice. Saptak, we can't hear you. I think Saptak's connection is not very good right now. Jamin, are
no,
you around? Yeah,
it's
you're back.
yes, I'm back. Sorry for the disruption in the connection. So as I was saying, the developer has access to this database for free, and we are now working with EDAM and BESCOM to tag each building to their respective account IDs, so that we know exactly how much capacity can be installed based on the distribution transformer, how much can go to the consumer, and how much can be exported back into the grid. So this way, the third party also has a very good way of knowing what their business case is if they put a certain size on any of the identified rooftops. So this has been made using a multi-criteria analysis where we showed that it's based on the available distribution transformer capacity and the radiation on each of these roofs. And I hope that this tool is now useful for the developers, which now will lead to a lot of more interesting questions like, okay, now that demand aggregation has been done, what are the next steps? What kind of programs or the business models can BESCOM adopt to go for a 1.06 gigawatt tender? What is the financial implication on BESCOM and how best to mitigate any negative impacts? How do developers come on board and avail the benefits of this tool along with BESCOM's aggregation model? What kind of financial institutions are available and what are the loans that are available to consumers, whether they are CNI or residential or third party rescos? So all these interesting questions will be answered in the following sessions. Also in our session, in this session, we have a very interesting concept of integrating energy efficiency with rooftop solar. That session will be taken by Sumedha, who's at WRI, and she leads the energy efficiency work in buildings in the organization. And we also have Sumati ma'am from Tide, who has worked in the VR integration, the VR tool for buildings in Bangalore, where they look at appliances and consumption of residential consumers and how best energy efficiency can be used as an intervention to reduce demand and thereby also reduce the required system size when it comes to rooftop PV. So we are looking at this very interested integrated approach in the near future, and we will take our sessions one by one. So with this, I would like to hand over the presentation controls to Jamin, my colleague, who will take you through the policy implications of rooftop solar 1.06 gigawatt in this case. Abhishek, I request you to please give it over to Jamin.
Can you see my screen and am I audible?
Yeah, yes, Jamin, we can hear you.
Okay. Very
Yeah.
warm afternoon to all the wonderful people who are attending this webinar, and I think it would be a fantastic discussion. The goal with this presentation is to discuss about how BESCOM can strategically plan rooftop PV implementation with innovative business models. For doing that, the rooftop solar demand can be aggregated with the help of CREST outcomes. We'll start the discussion with present status of rooftop solar market by realizing the gap between target and current installed capacity. Then we will discuss about the optimal strategies to increase the uptake of rooftop solar under BESCOM jurisdiction. After that, I will showcase a case study for BESCOM with some interesting results. And finally, I would end up the session with policy implications and way forward. Let me start the presentation with some general information about rooftop PV targets and installed capacities. In the year of 2014, the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy has set an ambitious target of 100 gigawatt through solar energy by 2022, of which 40 gigawatt is expected from decentralized rooftop solar projects. Unfortunately, after 6 years, we have been able to achieve only 14% of the target. The state of Karnataka has installed 234 megawatt of rooftop PV against the target of 2.4 gigawatt. And in Bangalore city, BESCOM has attained only 12% of the 1.2 gigawatt rooftop PV target. So from the statistics, it's very clear that the growth has remained sluggish for the nation to meet the national target of 40 gigawatt by 2022. Using CREST, we came to know that the city has real RTPV potential of 3.2 gigawatt, which is really huge. So by seeing the gap between higher potential and sluggish growth, it becomes essential to plan innovative implementation strategies. Here we recommend BESCOM to play an anchor role in the whole implementation program. To begin with, demand aggregation can be an effective solution for large-scale RTPV installations. Here, CREST can be a problem-solving tool which provides precise details of the best rooftops across the city. Then, in our opinion, BESCOM should segregate the demand for different consumer categories, which are residential, commercial, industrial, and institutional. By doing so, BESCOM would know which category is having how much potential. This information can be very much useful in targeting particular segments having higher rooftop PV potential. Finally, after demand aggregation, BESCOM can think of implementing RTPV with different aggregated business models. At present, there are three basic models which are CAPEX, RESCO, and DISCOM owned. Under CAPEX, there are two models where DISCOM acts as aggregator as well as aggregator and EPC both. Solar PPAs and solar leasing are two submodels of RESCO, and the last model is DISCOM owned, where DISCOM itself is acting as aggregator and investor. After having brief of each aggregator model, we will discuss about optimal implementation strategy for BESCOM. The innovative framework has been developed and proposed by CSTEP. So the goal is to mitigate the financial burden of RTPV as well as improve the profitability for BESCOM. Here, BESCOM just need to perform two steps. In the first step, BESCOM would analyze the impact of achieving rooftop PV targets on its projected ACOS values for each aggregator model. Based on the revised ACOS numbers, BESCOM will identify the favorable and detrimental aggregator models. And the second step is to devise optimal strategy where BESCOM will pick top 2 to 3 favorable models and amalgamate them to meet the target. By doing so, we will have the balanced shares from each consumer segments and also optimal shares of both net metering and gross metering schemes that will definitely improve the financial gains. Now I will explain these two steps in a detailed manner. In order to analyze the impact on ACOS, BESCOM can use its traditional ACOS calculation model where it projects energy sales for the preferred time frame. Then BESCOM will calculate the power purchase cost and ARR to determine ACOS values. Here ARR stands for average revenue requirement. Now it's very easy to understand that our rooftop PV penetration will directly affect energy sales. That will obviously have significant impact on ACOS projections. However, to analyze the precise impact, we have to consider several assumptions that I will show in the next slide. Basically, BESCOM needs to make three simple assumptions, which are annual capacity additions, installation shares from consumer segments, and division of RTPV energy generation into captive consumption and energy export. Using these parameters, next BESCOM will need to calculate relevant profit and loss parameters for each aggregator model. BESCOM makes profit through facilitation fees or trading fees and EPC margin. BESCOM charges facilitation fees when it facilitates the entire RTPV program, and it charges EPC margin when it acts as EPC contractor. Then there are three loss parameters. BESCOM suffers from revenue loss when the high-paying commercial and industrial consumers switch to rooftop solar, as well as the electricity remains unsold under the long-term PPAs with generators. Then it also bears additional power purchase cost due to exported RTPV generation. And lastly, there will be distribution transformer augmentation cost since BESCOM needs to upgrade distribution network to accommodate such large-scale rooftop PV. Finally, BESCOM needs to overlay those profit and loss parameters on its conventional ACOS model. By doing so, BESCOM will get revised ACOS numbers due to rooftop PV penetration. Then BESCOM will be able to identify which are favorable and detrimental models. The process flow has been shown here, where we can see inputs and outputs, where profit and loss parameters are overlaid on BESCOM's ACOS model, and output we are getting revised ACOS numbers for each aggregator model. However, the game doesn't end here. Actually, it becomes very interesting now. So the next step is to devise optimal strategy. Here, BESCOM will need to pick top 2 to 3 models, then divide the overall target amongst those models as per their preference. Then BESCOM will repeat the ACOS impact assessment exercise, which I explained previously, and obtain revised ACOS values. Here we suggest BESCOM to keep varying the shares of models until they obtain least ACOS values. Using this method, there are higher chances of getting lower ACOS values, which benefits BESCOM significantly. Now I'll showcase the case study where Bescom has planned to deploy 1.06 gigawatt RTPV by 2022. Here the chosen models are Discom as aggregator, solar PPAs, and solar leasing. Under the first model, Bescom should target residential consumers with 400 megawatt capacity where the consumers need to make an investment. These consumers will be the ones who have sufficient finance to adopt RTPV. Under the second model, also we recommend Bescom to target residential consumers with 210 megawatt capacity. Under this model, those consumers can participate who wants to adopt RTPV, but they do not have sufficient money to invest. Here we have a strong focus on residential consumer segment as it doesn't harm Bescom's finances much. Finally, under the third model, the rest 250 megawatt is allocated to commercial, industrial, and institutional consumers. Now we will see the financial implications of the proposed approach. Here we can see the ACOS projections without RTPV penetration. So in the year of 2021, the ACOS is 8.61 rupees per unit, which increased by 8.78 rupees in the next year. Now let's see the impact of proposed approach on ACOS projections. Wow, the ACOS is reduced by 6 to 9 paisa in the first year and it reduced by 0 to 6 paisa in the next year. Because of such reduction, there won't be any hike in the retail tariff rates. In fact, there will be a reduction in tariff rates due to rooftop PV penetration, which is unprecedented. The optimal strategy would benefit all the stakeholders. Let me explain individually. Bescom will witness improvement in profitability and reduction in financial burden. Next, large number of developers will get opportunities to participate in large-scale implementation, which will definitely improve their net worth. Next, RTPV consumers will be obviously benefited by cost reduction of RTPV systems because we will achieve economies of scale. And lastly, non-RTPV consumers will be benefited by reduction in tariff rates. The last slide is about way forward. It's very clear that such win-win scenario leads to the best policy making. Also, this strategic approach can be easily replicated by other Indian discoms. It was a myth that RTPV is detrimental to discom finances. In fact, it retains the potential to improve the profitability for discoms. Finally, the discoms would be enthusiastic to promote RTPV by calling large-scale tenders, which would significantly boost the growth across the nation. If we imagine this situation, then we literally feel how amazing it would be. We at C-Step really dream to make this happen by our Indian government. So here I will end up my presentation and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Jamin. That was a nice presentation. Saptak, would we have Rajiv Shukla? No?
Rajiv from IDAM and
Jigar.
Mr. Jigar from ADB have been called to a MNRE meeting for review of rooftop for their project with 8 states. So they have been kind enough to send us a video which we will play now to share what their experiences have been with the rooftop PV scene in India and how they are involved in the Karnataka space. Sandeep, can you please show the video on the screen now?
Good morning and namaste all. Honorable Additional Chief Secretary Energy of Karnataka, Sri Mahendra Jain, Managing Director of Bescom, Sri Rajesh Gowda, Dr. Jain from CSTEP, Ms. Sen Gupta from MacArthur Foundation, other representative of Bescom and CSTEP, and all participants. At the outset, on behalf of ADB and ADB Technical Assistance Team, I, Jigar Bhatt, Project Officer of ADB, handling prestigious solar rooftop investment program of ADB in India, would like to extend warm welcome to all of you for this historical event of launch of such innovative and first of its kind tool with aerial light detection and ranging technology for Bescom. which possess immense potential to support BESCOM's initiative to deploy 1060 megawatt of solar rooftop capacity. And not only that, if the tool is effectively utilized, then if it can support to achieve Government of India's goal to deploy 40 gigawatt of solar rooftop capacity by 2022. ADB is supporting development of solar rooftop projects in India through financial intermediary loan of $500 million with multi-tranche financing facility mode. So ADB is not only providing technical assistance to various stakeholders, but also supporting deployment of solar rooftop in India by providing project finance at a concessional interest rate to the desired beneficiaries through partner financial intermediary. At this moment, partnership with PNB is expiring and partnership with another implementing agency is being rolled out. The initiative of SysTep and MacArthur Foundation is supplementing overall solar rooftop investment program of ADB and also technical assistance program being implemented by ADB TA team of KPMG IDAM to build ecosystem in the state of Karnataka and development of single window clearance portal for all DISCOMs of the state of Karnataka. Consulting partner of ADB TA program, Mr. Rajiv Shukla from IDAM will inform salient feature of TA implementation. With this, on behalf of ADB, I would like to wish SysTep and BESCOM all the best. Let me assure ADB's continuous support for all such initiatives towards the development of solar rooftop business in the state of Karnataka. And special thanks to BESCOM management for supporting such high technology initiative by SysTep. Thank you. Over to you, Rajiv.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Rajiv Shukla, working as an Associate Director with IDAM Infrastructure Advisory Private Limited. I also take this opportunity to thank Department of Energy, Government of Karnataka, Senior Management of BESCOM and SysTep for inviting us and providing us this opportunity to share our experience during today's Solar Rooftop Evolution launch event. As informed by Jigar, Consortium of KPMG and IDAM Infra is providing technical assistance support to the state agencies of 8 states, union territories with the objectives of creating enabling framework for large-scale deployment of the SRPV. This program is being implemented under the aegis and guidance of Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. ADB TA program team presented best practices and innovative business model being adopted by different states for implementation of the solar rooftop systems and suggested possible consumer category wise business model which BESCOM can consider for further implementation. ADB TA program organized study tour for the senior officials of BESCOM to the state of Kerala, where program is providing technical assistance support to the Kerala State Electricity Board in implementation of India's largest utility-driven business model program called SORA program. ADB TA program is supporting distribution utilities of Karnataka in empanelment of the vendors for implementation of the grid-connected solar rooftop projects aggregating to the capacity of 72 megawatt to be implemented, targeting residential and residential welfare association under Central Financial Assistance Scheme of MNRE. ADB TA program has also supported recently BESCOM in updating their existing solar rooftop portal in accordance with the phase 2 guidelines of MNRE and also establishing interlinkages with MNRE Spin portal. The same portal will also be replicated by the other distribution utilities of Karnataka. At present, IDAM Infra is supporting BESCOM in preparing a roadmap for implementation of 1060 megawatt of solar rooftop projects to be implemented targeting different consumer categories through deployment of innovative utility-driven business model which are approved by Karnataka Electricity Regulatory Commission. Subsequently, IDAM Infra will support BESCOM in successful implementation of the said project in a phase-wise manner. Some of the activities which are envisaged for providing technical assistance support, which includes technical constitution of the technical and process committee, finalization of the consumer category wise business model, launching of the demand aggregation program, support in creating awareness and outreach among the targeted consumer category, consumer enrollment, site feasibility assessment and creation of the data room, support in tendering process and vendor empanelment, regulatory filing, signing of the contract with vendors and supporting development of the IT enabled tool, project management tool to monitor implementation and post installation of the solar rooftop projects. Solar rooftop evaluation tool developed by system using LIDAR technology for BESCOM is one of the first kind of such initiatives in India. ADBTA program will certainly explore possibility of using the same tool for aggregation of demand from the different consumer category and assessment of the solar rooftop potential from the city of Bangalore. I once again take this opportunity to thank Government of Karnataka, senior management of BESCOM and CSTEP for providing us this opportunity to share our experience. We continue to provide TA support to distribution utilities of Karnataka for large-scale deployment of the solar rooftop in the state of Karnataka. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep, for making that video happen. So it's a pity that IDAM and ADB couldn't virtually be present on this platform. But I guess MNRE's review meeting couldn't have come at a better time because it's coinciding with the launch of our tool, and we have been told that the tool is being discussed there as well. Without further ado, I would like to get a developer's perspective on Crest and what they can do with the tool. And the reason why we've chosen Harsha from EcoSoch is simply because we were approached by a few developers to talk at this event, but Harsha has been working diligently for the past 5 years or for a long time, and his focus is on the residential sector, which is, I think, in CSTEP's opinion, one of the most underserved yet one of the most potent customers of rooftop PV because the system sizes are small and the distribution transformer loading is also not an issue. Plus, it has the least negative impact, as Jaimin had explained so clearly in his presentation, on BESCOM's finances. So Harsha, who's the MD of EcoSoch, has come from the background of IT from HP earlier, so he will have a more insightful opinion as to how Crest can be improved and how they're going to use it. And we look forward to his presentation and his input. So over to you, Harsha, now.
Thanks, thank you so much. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you guys see my screen as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'll just not sure. Okay, I guess you can see my full screen, right?
Right.
Hi. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Saptak. Thanks to CSTEP and BESCOM for giving this wonderful tool to the developers community in Bangalore. I mean, I can't even express the gratitude that I have for all of you. You know, since morning I've been seeing the tool's capabilities, and it's just amazing piece of work. I'll just so today I just want to give a brief about from developers' point of view how this tool could help, and probably there are other developers in the discussion or even the BESCOM officials, and they probably can see how it actually your work is going to impact our lives and indirectly all the customers of ours, whom we are working with. So this I'm just for the talk, I'm going to briefly touch upon our work so that you get an idea of how much of work we actually do, and how the tools like Crest could help us out. Share with you some of the reference projects, and we'll walk through some of the design processes that we do internally at our office to actually do a proper solar rooftop project. We'll talk about some of the shadow factors in designs and how Crest can actually is going to help us out. And last, we'll touch upon the savings from the Crest tool that we actually anticipate, once we start using the tool. Just about us, we are incubated from one of the, I think, the only townships in India today. I think it's Araval, which is completely sustainable, from long time. And they've gone fully now, wind and solar is there. So we actually got started from there. Since then, we, our base is in Bangalore. We have done around 325 plus rooftops, mostly in Bangalore. around 3.1 megawatt. Actually, we actually also do the maintenance of our plants, and we have varied experiences installing solar water pumps, hybrid systems. These days, we are doing lithium-ion batteries as well, and we have entered venture into the EV infrastructure. And I think there is a thing about EV infrastructure and Crestwool that's a future potential that I'll briefly talk about. So services we offer, of course, doing the solar power plants, we also do the engineering and design. We do the consultancies as well, for owners engineer, and do the maintenance. Solar Care is a division which actually looks after the performance of our plants as well as external plants which the developers have left or abandoned, and we get to manage them to actually to take care of that. The other one is these are the projects. Actually, what you see is the projects in Bangalore, and you can see the complicated roofs. This is one of the apartment complexes. The right next to one is a villa community in Bangalore, and third one is another villa community in Bangalore, where you can see the different orientations of the roof and the tree structures. If you look at the apartments, you will find the staircase rooms casting shadows on the panels. The tanks that the water tanks is another one which actually casts a lot of shadows as well. So these are actual challenges that we face when we go to the roofs, and to do this, what looks like a so beautiful installations here, has a lot of work has been put in to finalize the locations and to bring it to a fruition. Now, these are the commercial buildings. Commercials has the same challenges. Commercials usually have bigger roofs. Usually they are fairly easy to identify and do them, but still it requires lot more rigorous work as well, because you still need to map the entire area, and it's not a one person's job. It's like two people going one day, and then maybe second day they have done the mistakes. And I'll tell you also that in our experience, there are sites where we have done multiple site visits just because the technical engineer who has gone there doesn't or missed out one part of an area which the customer says, I want to put the panels there, right? And you say, okay, let's just go there. And then every time we go, then we have to make a design changes as well. So these are the technical challenges, right? These are the roofs. This is actually in Bangalore, by the way. I mean, what you see as a farm is in a Bangalore, where we have done water pumps. Again, it doesn't necessarily need to be a on-grid system. I mean, I think something that we were discussing about, generation details. It doesn't need to be. Actually, the tool that you have can also be used for other applications within solar. This is another factory outside Bangalore. This is a farmhouse, again, not on-grid system, but you actually still be able to go to the tool and do measurements. I wish we had this. By the way, all these sites here, what you see is like 60 kilometers away from our office, right? 60 to 70 kilometers. Now, just to send someone to go there to take the measurements, even before you close the project, it takes a lot of effort and time. Each visit just on the transportation itself will be around 300-400 rupees. Food, the cost of the engineer, and then time that he spends, the opportunity cost is a huge amount. And you can get the sense of the work that you have done, how it could actually impact our work on a day-to-day basis. So let's I'll go over the processes that we follow today. Assume that we have no Crestwool. So what we do is we call the customer, calls us, we talk, niceties, and then we go in details what the customer wants. Then we ask him for the electricity bills, send us the geolocation. The customer, typically most of the customers are not aware that they should keep the electricity bill. Right now they have to search and they somehow get it. The whole process takes back and forth. We actually ask for 12 months bills, but we get 1 month bill at most. If some of the customers are diligent, they have the bills and they'll send it to us. So once we get the bills and geolocation, then we say, okay, we'll send one technical person to do the site visit and do the assessment for any shadows at the site. And I'm going to, one of the slides that I have is on the shadows, right? Shadows play a very vital role. Customer usually says, I have 2,400 square feet of space or 10,000 square feet of space, but it means nothing for solar, because solar actually we are looking at a shadow-free analysis, where you can maximize the solar generation, and that's not possible without actually visiting the site. And so many times we have actually said no to the customer to give a quotation because we don't know the site conditions, and just giving a quotation, it's not something that you can sell a TV on phone or something like Amazon, you can buy online. So once we go to the site, the engineers take 4 to 6 hours, do the 3D. Once comes back again, you take 4 hours to do the 3D designing, and there is some other team that actually does the engineering part to do what are the constraints, do some SketchUps, AutoCAD in some cases. Once you do that, then you also want to do the generation analysis with some of the tools. By the way, the PVSys tool costs like 90,000 rupees. SketchUp costs around 20,000 rupees or 30,000 rupees per license. You have a lot of these costs again in the system, right? And then you have the generation. Once you do the generation analysis, okay, this is the best place to put your panels, and then you do the financial analysis. So the financial analysis will give you, okay, these are the rate of returns and these are costs of the thing, and you actually go and make a full detailed proposal and send it to the customer, and from then on it's the same process, right? So just to give you on a shadow analysis, right? What we do at the site surveys, we do a lot of this, mapping. This is actually a drawing of one of our sites, where we look at the staircase room. Okay, these are the shadows. This is a maximum. Then you say, okay, from 4 to 5, you need to maximize the generations. You have parapet walls. You have the tree covers. God knows, what are the things that you'll find? It's amazingly, like you can just see this one designer element there, which is actually casting a shadow. So we need to move the panels, right? So these are real challenges. I'll tell you, there are developers, there are system integrators unfortunately, who actually may not be well versed with the shadows in detailing, and they actually propose a systems and put the panel somewhere close to it, and then you get less generation and customers are unhappy. They don't want to promote solar. So a lot of these issues, right? We actually follow certain thumb rules to calculate this. Now, I think just to give you a sense of the work, what is shadow analysis and why it's important, I think I'll just play a video for just for the sake of it, and then I'll so that you get an idea of how the tool, Crest tool, is going to help all of us, right? This is with the real panels and real location. You can see the generation all is the same during the morning time, and as soon as you start, just forward it, it's all coming fine. Afternoon comes and you can slowly start seeing the the shadows factors coming in there, and you can see the panels generating less and less and less. So so it becomes very crucial to have this sun analysis done for a system integrator to propose a real system. And what I showed you is a slide that actually captures the importance of Crest tool and what are the things that it can provide. Right now, when I look at the Crest tool, it is doing a lot of things automatic. It's actually bringing the entire electricity bills from the customer. It actually brings you the geolocation of the customer based on the his account number. So I don't need to spend that 1 hour of time. Maybe 15 minutes of that. Maybe I have to spend time to get the customers, the customers' details, email ID, and things like to create an account for them. But that's pretty much it. Then you don't need to do a initial site visit. Okay, later we do need to do a site visit, but the initial first site visit we can avoid. That actually is around a significant time. It's around 4 to 6 hours. In some cases, it's a whole day. Most of the people who go there, they're not going to come and start the work again. System design, 4 hours you can actually save. You don't need to do, because it's already done you get an analysis of where the panels are going to be put. The system is taking care, and we can be assured that here the shadows are not there, because there's a proper the layouts that the tool gives. And of course, you can actually also do the customized design. What Jamie, I think you were showing, Dhruv was showing early in the morning, that we can actually do. And then it's not just that. Now you're also getting to the generation analysis, and I think it's phenomenal that you actually go and do the entire shadow analysis as well. That actually, and it's a, and you have given an option for the developers to actually feed in how much, you can actually expect in certain areas, locations, or what are the shadow factors or the losses in the panels. You can input all those things. I think that makes it easy for essentially all the PV system, these expensive tools like Helioscope, redundant. Again, you save just not the money, but also the amount of time that you do, because at one click, you're actually getting all that. Making a proposal, I actually, it takes 1 hour. In fact, I see with the tool that you actually can put the real numbers there as well and share it with the customer right from the tool, if that's something that's possible. As a developers right now, I don't think I have an option to do that, but I think that's a feature that's available. So that's all I have. Just to, briefly, I talked about savings using Crest tool. It can be done by a single person. You don't need multi-team to do these things. You don't need to pay for the expensive third party, which I said. Time to close a project, it takes a lot of effort these days, back and forth. I was saying that could be completely done faster. The overall design and engineering cost will come down, because you are actually not allowing the people to go there. So which means actually you are saving a lot of money in the engineering part. And then the COVID times, the real important thing that to note is the human interaction. These days, one of the issues after the lockdown and entire fraternity of solar has actually experienced is the number of site visits that we could do, or number of projects that we could do. Right, we have our numbers are almost like 30-40% of the market has actually come down, and I think I attribute that to COVID. Now you have a tool that actually you can limit your interactions and can pretty much complete the project analysis and come to the final negotiation stage from your desktop. I think that helps. The last but not the least is that when you save time, it's not that you're going to fire people, right? It's actually going to give all our people, myself, time to reach out to more customers and close more orders, and we can actually drastically improve the solar rooftop penetration in Bangalore. That's our hope, and I really think Crest tool could make a lot of difference. I know that there is an issues with the slowing down and stuff, but I think that's with the improved speeds, I think that's going to be a problem that might be solved in the near future. That's us. I think I'm on time. So you can always reach us out, if you have questions, and I'll be very happy, and I'll be happy to touch base with Saptak and others, to work on this tool, with this tool and with Bestcom as well. Thank you, thanks Saptak. Thank you, Sister.
Was there right? So now that Harsha has explained to us how developers can use Crest for reaching out to customers, especially during these times, and how it helps them reduce time, I think we are sort of vindicated in our efforts to do this immense survey. Now we will come to the point where another very interesting facet can be integrated with rooftop, which is energy efficiency. A lot of the times that we have discussed with stakeholders, energy efficiency has not gained the sort of importance that it should, in our opinion. And there's no one better to talk on the subject other than the esteemed panelists here, which is Sumati from Tide and Sumedha from the World Resources Institute. So I would suggest that we now hand over presentation to Sumati. Sumati, are you there?
Yeah, thanks, Saptak. Yeah.
I will just transfer control to you.
I don't have a presentation really.
Doesn't matter, so you can talk.
Yeah, sure. So should I show my screen, or you can see me right now?
We can see you.
Yeah. So do you think Sumedha should go first, because I thought high-level perspective, or is this okay, Sumedha?
Sumati, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, hi. Thanks, Saptak, and congratulations to the entire CSTEP team for the launch of the CREST tool. Not only does it have a robust backend, I've had the privilege to also try it out a little bit during the demo, and I should say that it's been a delight playing around with the tool, trying to choose the rooftop and optimizing all of those features that you explained today. It's really a delight to work with the tool, and congratulations to the entire team on this launch. And we hope there is a very good adaptation of the tool. Now, coming to this aspect that you are bringing up with the integration of the EE with the RE, I think before I introduce about Vidyut Rakshaka, I just wanted to make a case for that, why that kind of an integration of EE with RE. And I think people in this room will largely agree that when it comes to rooftop solar adoption or energy efficient appliances, it's not really the technology that is a challenge today. We have access to technology products or processes. All it requires is a little bit of effort and time and money to put that together. But even then, we have a challenge in adoption, like Mr. Jain pointed out today, and as all the experts will agree, that there is a big gap in the adoption in the residential sector, particularly because we know it's contributing to about 1/4 of the consumption. And this is an aspiring population greedy for new kind of technology and the solutions, but still the adoption is low. So why is it is like that? There could be various reasons, but two things that made TIDE and WRI look at having a tool like Vidyut Rakshaka. I will just focus on those two. One is the easier and a simpler one, which is the financial aspect. And here, again, like Mr. Jain said in the morning, it's not really the access to finance which is the problem. I think particularly in urban residential areas, access to finance is really not such a great issue for an investment of rooftop solar, maybe 3-4 lakhs. Still, there are people willing to do that. However, I think there is a very interesting expectation from the consumer, which we have understood in our last 4-5 years of engagement with the consumers, which is that people are expecting to maximize the gain with minimum spend. They're looking at very attractive ROI and a very sustained ROI when they make such a kind of an investment. So this is one aspect of it. And the other aspect, which is more challenging, which is very tricky and which is very hazy, is to do with the mindset. So for an average household, a guy walking on the road who has access to a rooftop, how do we ensure that he looks at this as a potential solution for his household, not as something that is a policy level decision or something like a BESCOM goal or something like that? Essentially, how do you move this discussion from a webinar to a dining table conversation? Like in a house, you sit and decide, make investment for the house. How do you move this into a dining table conversation? And how do you make them understand that this is something relevant to me, not like, in academia or a policy level discussion? So this is something that I think a tool like Vidyut Rakshaka can do in partnership with a tool like CREST. So this is a really complementing kind of a thing, two sides of the coin. So what we have done in Vidyut Rakshaka is it's basically a consumer-focused, customized tool where it will give recommendations to the consumer, not just on, say, technologies or ROI. It starts very simple things like nil investment-based recommendations. Because like I said, people are looking at how do I save even without investment? And we know it is possible through conservation techniques. So for example, how do you come down a slab? Or how do you optimize your AC settings so that you can come down a few units? So these are kind of some of the things that Vidyut Rakshaka addresses. And moving to the second part of it, which is to do with the mindset and the awareness, we understood that there is a lot of information gap. Again, this came out in different panels today, that there is information gap, and we have seen this not only in individual households, but as part of another initiative with WRI in apartment complexes, that there are a lot of gaps here. There is no clarity on the policy. There is a decision management issue. So there are a lot of these things where the ground is not fertile for adopting this kind of technologies. So Vidyut Rakshaka is taking an approach where we look at changing behavior, changing mindset with respect to adoption of these technologies, whether it is rooftop or energy efficient appliances. We also have adopted a very unique thing called the neighborhood benchmarking. because it's an established concept that something that motivates people is to compare themselves with the neighbors, social normative function. So we have adopted that also. Like Crest, Vidyut Rakshaka has a very robust backend. Again, great appreciation and recognition of BESCOM partnership here. They have been with us for the last few years, and Vidyut Rakshaka is listed as a DSM program in the BESCOM website. And through their partnership, we have been able to give customized reports to consumers. We have also now launched a website where somebody who's not registered also can access some of this information. It's called save.tai-india.org. I would urge you all to go and take a look there. You'll get some interesting insights about neighborhood benchmarking, where you stand with respect to your neighbors. So these are the kind of unique values that Vidyut Rakshaka can bring onto the table when we integrate it with Crest tool. Because what it is going to do is that you are going to look at an optimal, rounded solution where the demand can be reduced. You are not looking at what is the potential or how much should I invest. You are looking at what is my total energy consumption optimal for my family? How can I reduce that? How can I optimize that? By integrating VR into the Crest. And what will happen is, and this is something that I did myself from my house, and I have the data with me, that immediately when I used the VR recommendations and used it to input to Crest, there was a favorable ROI. So it is only a reduction of a few months. Definitely the ROI became favorable. So there is definitely a case in point here where an integration of an EE with an RE will make it very interesting and beneficial to the consumer. I just want to conclude by saying that there is a very popular saying, and Indians definitely believe in not only saying but adopting this, which is hitting two mangoes with one stone. I think by having a VR and the Crest tool, we will definitely hit two, if not more, mangoes with one stone. So thank you for the opportunity, and we look forward to actually taking this ahead, this idea of integrating them, and we hope to keep the conversation going. Thank you all. Be safe. Take care.
Thank you, Sumati. Those are very wise words indeed. And I think she's perfectly encapsulated what exactly the benefits are for rooftop and energy efficiency. And I look forward to Sumeda's comments also on this topic. Sumeda, over to you.
Sure, thanks, Saptak. Firstly, congratulations again on this, the launch of this incredible tool. As Sumati has highlighted, over the course of these several years of working with consumers on the ground on energy efficiency through Vidyut Rakshaka, we've realized the value of changing behaviors and changing lifestyles. While it is important for us to sort of remember that we need to really work with consumers, I would like to just highlight some big picture issues, if I may. At a global level, we have been observing this entire push towards cities achieving net zero emissions by mid-century, because that's the target as prescribed by the IPCC. If we are looking at a 1.5 degree target of reduction of average temperatures, cities must achieve net zero emissions by mid-century. And the critical sector of focus which has been identified is the building space, where the global building stock should become at least completely zero carbon by 2050. That's the target that we have set at the global level. And when you talk about how this, what it means for the building space, we are simply talking about zero carbon buildings, which exemplify the principle of energy efficiency first and renewable energy after that. So a combination of both energy efficiency and renewables offers a great potential for us to achieve this net zero carbon scenario. And when you have buildings which can generate and even store their own carbon-free electricity on site, or they can raise demand for off-site renewable energy production, something that we have been exploring under the demand aggregation type of concept, which is also something that you mentioned, Saptak and Jamin, also in his remarks. Because at the end of the day, not all individual buildings have enough roof space, right, for on-site renewable generation, and therefore to have that aggregator concept built in makes a lot of sense if you want to achieve a building scale decarbonization. But what's happening in India is that the need for energy efficiency itself is being questioned. And that's primarily because renewable energy is becoming cheaper by the day. But while this may be true for large solar plants at the building level, as we have discussed in the morning, as even Jaimin highlighted, the cost for renewable energy continue to be significant. And even with subsidies, solar currently makes financial sense for the really high tariff consumers, such as commercial and industrial consumers, and to a very limited extent for residential consumers. Although with the business models that were described before, it is very likely that this particular cost can be brought down. So the ultimate objective of having a high renewable penetration scenario along with energy efficiency also becomes important in the context of the implications of carbon, the implications of embodied carbon. Because not just the fact that you are reducing the demand for renewable energy through energy efficiency, we also have to remember the demand for other resources, which is going to be reduced if you integrate energy efficiency, which is important in our fight against climate change. And currently what we have in the policy scenario for renewable energy, as I explained, energy efficiency is not being prioritized. When it comes to renewable energy, the policies are not in sync with building energy policies like the Energy Conservation Building Code, which has been introduced 3 years ago. And it talks a lot about RE integration first, after achieving a reduction in the energy demand through the design of the building or through employment of energy efficient technologies. So incorporating renewable energy to reduce the carbon content of the energy supply itself is recommended as the final step to meet the optimal demand that the building can have after it has incorporated the energy efficiency principles. Given the fact that we are looking at a very long road ahead as far as the integration is concerned, I think it is important that this policy level integration is also achieved for energy efficiency and renewables, the energy efficiency sector is doing it by talking about greener buildings, by talking about zero carbon buildings. But our hope is that even the renewable sector also picks up. And I know Harsha is online, and we have had this conversation before as well, and how solar developers themselves are also stepping up and offering the advice to consumers to consider energy efficiency interventions first before they actually go for a rooftop solar. So I think it is a right time to talk about energy efficiency. We just hope that these experiences on the ground with consumers can translate into policy action, which will result in a scaling up of this integrated energy efficiency and renewable energy. Thanks.
Absolutely agree with you 100%, Sumedha. It's the right time because now, especially with COVID and people wanting to save more. So if somebody, as Harsha says, wants to invest in rooftop, so if he sees with energy efficiency that 4 kilowatt can come down to 2.8, then that's around a lakh saved for him. So, which is why we should take this very seriously. And it's a pity that Motoshi can't be here, but she's asked us to record the session and send it across whenever, because she's attending another meeting. So there's time for.
Just to add to Sumedha's point, we have actually, there's one building hospital in Tamil Nadu where we have done. The project actually, when we started, I think it was, we needed to put like 150 kilowatt system. After we did the energy efficiency, removed all the fans, we have got energy efficient fans, changed it to LEDs, moved the pumps to ground force pumps. We were actually able to cut down their actual requirement by 50%. The overall cost plus the energy efficiency improvements was much higher than actually the solar cost that they actually wanted to invest when they started talking with us. So we actually have case studies there. It's always very interesting to combine them both. Unfortunately, the whole dialogue happens today on the solar because of its attention that it grabbed. We also, couldn't go on detail the things, and it's a very interesting conversation to start actually with going forward. Yeah.
So it's great to see such ethical practices by EcoSoft, where they actually forego revenue by encouraging consumers to go to lesser consumption pattern using energy efficiency, and that in itself shows that our country has the capability to go this way in the very near future. So as I was saying, we do have a bit of time for discussion amongst us, and we were wondering if Sumati could also join the conversation, because I think
I'm here. Yeah, I'm here.
will you be able? Yes, Jamin, are you also there?
Saptak, I have a request to the audience. You can post your questions in the pane that appears on the right-hand side in your respective screens, and we'll try to answer those questions. We have received the one question, but we are looking for more. And remember, this is a closed-door session, so it's a better place to get questions answered here. So over to you, Saptak.
Right. So to kick off the panel discussion, I think we should be able to cover a few important topics. So we'll start with the rooftop aspects. So the question that I have to ask Harsha is, for example, now you heard ADAM and ADB talk about the $500 million loan facility which is available, and we're also working with them to aggregate demand based on the size categories, the residential, domestic, commercial, industrial, and RESCO. And we're also looking at how to phase it out over the next 2 years. In your opinion, is it possible to have around 400 megawatts installed on domestic rooftops, including RWAs, in the next 2 years? If not, what is the ideal time frame for it? And do you see potential for the RESCO model at a 10 kilowatt and below level, or do you see the RESCO model working only for larger systems on RWAs, which will be more favorable? And do you as a company look at RESCO models also? Harsha, you're on
Can
mute.
you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, a good question. I think there are two parts to the question. First, whether can we achieve 400 megawatts? Is it possible to do it in the next 2 years? The second question is, do you see the RESCO, adoption of RESCO models in Bangalore or on RWAs? So far the progress that we have done for the last 5 years is not so encouraging. What was expected versus that's not with Bangalore alone. It's the rooftop for the entire country. The plan, the vision was not actually met in the rooftops, whereas on the ground mounted it did go. Again, the issues of the same thing, which I was saying, that to do the site visit, to go and come to aggregate, get the actual how much we can install. A lot of these challenges that we face, Crest tool actually plays a role in that, saving on that aspect. One of the issues that we see is financing is a major problem for the RWAs to go. The minute they have to invest any money on a project, they would see, okay, I have my painting job to be done, I have my STP to be repaired. Why should I do a solar when I can actually pay the BESCOM fees every month on month? However, that whole dynamics would change the minute you say that you are actually going to put solar and you're going to become cash positive on the day one. Someone invests the money on the solar. Either it could be a form of a loan, or either it could be a form of RESCO, and you say that you just give me 20% of the project cost just to have their skin in the game, and they support the project, and the other 80% or 70% could come from the bank or from the RESCO, anyone is investing, and you show the cash positive on the day one. I think that has got a huge impact. Now, we were working with OPEX projects in Bangalore. We started working on them. Unfortunately, the KERC had come up with a rule saying that up to 3 years we'll give you the net metering option. After that, you need to pay the cross subsidy surcharges or any other surcharges it will add. And in fact, the policy was so unclear, unfortunately, is that they said after 3 years we will decide what that cost should be. Right? That was a no-no for any investor who comes and says, I want to put the money, but I won't know after 3 years what is going to happen. So that actually took a very different direction. The gross metering does not work, the financials. On the net metering, it does work. If those policy changes are done, then that could happen. On the bank part, to answer short, banks unfortunately so far have been very reluctant with solar rooftops. Whenever you go for ask for the bank, it's easy to buy a loan for a car because car is a collateral that they take. But if you ask them to take solar panels on the collateral, they'll say no, I can't sell that system. I can't really go and fund that project. The third thing is the ticketed items, right? It's a 3 lakhs, 5 lakhs. Some of the bank managers are not interested. They need 10,000 crores to fund someone, but not a small aggregates. They don't want to do that. We actually had a discussion with the World Bank. I think World Banks are that. I mean, they had that fund. They had given to SBI. $1 billion. But again, that fund, it was actually given for the aggregators up to 1 megawatt and above, but small residential rooftops got left out in that scheme as well. So I think these are the, if things do come, I think 400 megawatt is achievable. We are getting a lot of leads and stuff, but making a cash positive project in Resco is a way to go to reach out to more people. I think I'm not for the subsidies as much. I think subsidies play a different role, but solar can sustain by itself without subsidies, provided you get the financing arranged, not necessarily the subsidy part. So I am actually not for subsidies that has been announced recently.
Thank you, Harsha. Those are very insightful comments. So we'll definitely take those into account when we are formulating the process for BESCOM along with IDAM, KPMG, and ADB, because one of the questions that we had asked is that ADB's line is there only for CNI, but the World Bank is also planning to diversify their portfolio into domestic. But again, the primary concern is like if cheap loan were to be available to domestic guys, the number of tickets would go up drastically, and no bank wants to deal with like maybe 40,000 consumers of 3 lakh each. But what they would be willing to do is get BESCOM as an intermediary. So BESCOM anyways takes the electricity bill every month from the consumer. So instead of dealing with 40,000 entities, the bank can deal directly with BESCOM, and BESCOM can transfer the EMI directly to the bank. So that is one of the models that we're looking at. So that might help in the that might help in getting lower cost and longer tenure finance for domestic consumers. So the other question that I had for Jamin, who's been working in the policy space for a while with Rooftop, is that you presented 3 of the business models which are approved by KERC. So now suppose there's a huge apartment complex with maybe, according to CREST, 400 kilowatt capacity possible at like 19% CUF, and the distribution transformer which is connected to it also has around 2 MVA, so you can easily fit 400 kilowatt. But the sanction load of all the common areas happens to be only 160 kilowatt, 44 towers, so 160 kilowatt. So according to the present policy, you will not be able to install more than 160 kilowatts. So the remaining 240 kilowatt capacity which could be installed remains uninstalled. So actually this is a 2-part question. So Harsha, I would like to ask you that if there is a possibility like this, is it feasible for you to get into a PPA model with the apartment complex for 160 kilowatt and a gross metering after paying a rooftop rate to the rooftop lease rate to the Residents Welfare Association, and the remainder 240 kilowatt if you can directly sell to BESCOM at a predetermined PPA? So is this kind of a mixed model suitable to harness the true potential of Bangalore, or do we waste rooftop space just because of the sanction load? So this is a question to both Jamin and Harsha.
One, I think models could work. What we have seen is also the customers, on one hand, customer wants to maximize the benefits, to whatever he can get. If he has funds in his bank account, he would like to put it himself and do it. If not, if he's going to get 1 rupee less than what he's paying to the BESCOM, I think they're okay with it. We have seen that in many apartments also, that if I'm paying 1 rupee less for the next few years, I'm okay with that. It's just that the apartments which have got flushed with funds, they might be a little reluctant to let go some of their finances. When you do a gross metering, the amount of savings that you get is much less.
No, I'm not talking about the apartment investing. I'm talking about you as a company. You can
Right.
put up the entire sanction load 160 kilowatt and do the PPA with the RWA, and the remainder you could put with whatever tariff suits you. So suppose it comes to 4.8 rupees to be sold directly to BESCOM, the remainder. That way we can achieve our targets faster. But there's a mix.
Right. Sorry, the point I was saying is that BESCOM, unfortunately, the KRC, the amount that they have offered is very less. I mean, it's not enough for investors, to entice them to come and invest on a plant. We don't actually get 4 rupees. Actually, we get 3 rupees 7 paisa today per unit. That's fixed, right? And for a gross metering. And if you have multiple roofs, for example, you get 90% of that, which comes to 2.76 paisa per unit. It becomes unviable. I mean, we have spoken with multiple investors and they said, at that price, we can't actually do a project, right? So as a company, do we invest? Today, it's not viable. Only net metering is viable, or increase the gross metering cost. The amount that we could sell, as you said, 4 rupees or 5 rupees. Actually it might become viable. Yeah, I mean, but the price has to be really high. See, this is a reality is that MNRE, when it gives a pricings, right? I mean, when they publish that rooftop prices are 34 rupees, 35 rupees. In reality, that's not true. I mean, we actually, as a developers, when we look at it, the costs are much higher if you have to do a proper, good system that works, right? It's not just something you fit and forget it. When you do a proper equipment and do it where you get a reliable generation for next 10 years, then the cost becomes higher for residentials. But on the ground mounted, MNRE prices are more or less correct. Yeah. So that aspect of it has to be taken care when KRC is finalizing the prices, for the gross metering. It can't be 3 rupees as it stands today.
Jamin, what do you think about the mix of models? As Harsha said, the tariff should increase to make it viable. But from a policy perspective, do you see such a mixed model coming up?
Yes, I would answer that. So you mentioned that there is a building having 400 kilowatt of feasibility, right? But sanction load is 160 kilowatt. So remaining should be put up and sold to BESCOM, right, by RESCO. So that model should work ideally, but we need to check two things. Number one, impact on grid, grid stability we have to do assess whether grid will be able to accommodate such large capacity, because there won't be one building like that. There would be multiple buildings if this policy is coming. And number two, it would be also having impact on energy sales, because discoms will have last term PPAs also. So we have to see when the PPA is ending and if remaining can be fulfilled by the energy exported under gross metering. So if it is balancing out, in that case, it should work. A solution would be definitely to harness potential. The remaining capacity should be put up, but community solar based model should work over that. So discoms should think about that also. The neighboring buildings who are interested in rooftop solar, but they are not having feasibility to adopt rooftop PV, they can definitely go with community solar model. So that can be a good solution, because Delhi government has already approved that. So yeah.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Harsha,
there's also this group metering. Have you heard of group metering? I mean, that's there in group and virtual net metering. Yes. So I think that's one. I think I had actually suggested to KRC at one time that they should implement what Jamin was saying, is that have someone else don't have a roof, why not they come and invest in this roof, right? It's a fairly doable thing. I mean, it's just a ledger account that you have to change, add that number there, and then you probably pay the cross subsidy surcharges and stuff, because you're taking the power. But that's simply viable. Today I stay in an apartment complex. Even if I want to put solar, I have money, I actually can't do it. The other guy has roof, but he doesn't have money to put it. So,
Harsha, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I hope you have answered. So basically, there are two models, CapEx and RESCO. So compared to RESCO, CapEx is the most prominent model. So why RESCO has not taken up like CapEx, and what challenges RESCO developers are facing at the moment?
Yeah, see, one RESCO model, see, the rooftop costs are very high actually for RESCOs, initially. And the most of the developers who came, they said, I need minimum 300 kilowatt, 400 kilowatt systems. Even last year, it was minimum was like 300 kilowatt for them to do the cost workout. The returns they're looking at like 2.5 years, 3 years, they want to get their money back. But today, with the prices coming down, I think it's viable even at 50 kilowatt and 100 kilowatt. For small time investors, even those projects become viable. See, one of the issues is collection of money and stuff. If I have 100 crore rupees, I would like to put that money in three big projects and get the money. I don't have to run around all these different people, right? The idea that you cannot having multiple small chunks is always a challenge for the investors. So they always look at that 300 kilowatt. That's why it didn't take off. But I'll tell you, there are so many of my friends, and I know people who are okay to invest small amounts as well today. 50 kilowatt, 100 kilowatt is possible, provided a lot of rules, that they can't be they're not an IPP, they don't have to register. So there are a lot of things that if he's going to do it, there are administrative hurdles for them to invest today. As well as, BESCOM does not even now, KRC does not even allow now. If someone investors put some money in today in Bangalore, KRC has said that has to be only considered as a gross metering. You can't consider it as a net metering at all. So literally today, since last year, once the policy has come, there's a zero RESCO models in Karnataka. I don't have any projects which has taken off in last 1 year. Gross metering just does not work. Gross metering prices are too heavy too low for companies to invest.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other question I had which is a bit related to energy efficiency, was that when you the question is for Sumedha and Sumati both. When you have so you've conducted detailed surveys at the consumer level, right, to get to a stage where you've made this wonderful tool. So the discussion that entails obtaining information about energy consumption, does that also have a time of use component to it, like which are the heavy appliances which are working at what time? Because if you want this system to evolve over time, then we need to, because if you're thinking of 1 gigawatt of solar coming up, it means that, as Jaimin said, the stability of the grid becomes very important. So when you have a time of use kind of system being in place, then we know which appliances are working with solar. Because in one of our recent projects with BESCOM, we have the EV RTPK charging station in BESCOM. So we are trying to make sure that the EV charges through the rooftop solar. So is it possible to have a system in the near future where the heavy appliances which require stable power and all that, they are operated at night, and the energy, then the remaining is during the day? So that kind of load shift with energy efficiency interventions, do you see that happening?
Yeah, Sumedha, I'll just give the Vidyut Rakshaka experience, and maybe you can elaborate on that. I would answer that in two parts, Saptarsh. One is that when we started, we initially did not have that, but we brought in the time of the day usage of the appliances. And we do have that information, and in one of our recommendations, we recommend this also, because this proposition about even the time of the day tariff for residential sector is on the anvil, and it is going to come sooner than later. So this is one of the recommendations that we do give to our consumers. But I also want to bring out a challenge in this, which is that all of us as people who give solutions and who need a lot of information from the consumer struggle with the balancing. See, the consumer is looking at, again, a lot of information, while there is a lot of reluctance to share details from their side for various reasons. And so what we had done in Vidyut Rakshaka was to kind of design the tool in layers, we call it levels, where even if you are not ready to give me certain information about the usage of your appliance or, what kind of rating and what kind of, the appliances you have, we are still able to give some recommendations. And as and when they get comfortable, they give more information, then we are able to leverage that and give the right kind of recommendations. So why I'm mentioning this is that from the point of view of people who provide such tools for solutions, we have to keep this in mind, that this will be a challenge information flow from the other side. And therefore, I'm not sure how much we can, really use that when it comes to the launch of the tool. But on the theoretical side, yes, you are absolutely right. I think the usage of the heavy appliances in a staggered fashion, recommending a time of usage, definitely, I think there is scope for that.
Sumedha?
Sure. So just building on what Sumati said about the time of day tariffs coming in, until the cross subsidy tariff regime itself evolves into something like that residential consumers are taken seriously from the point of view, by the utility in the area of reducing the actual cost of supply to these consumers. Unless that comes in, it is going to be, absolutely, not worthless to have any kind of understanding on what appliances peak at what time, how do usage patterns play out. One of the suggestions that had come forward when smart metering was introduced in the country was that it will actually help utility design better demand response programs, which is what was hoped. But as we know right now, the penetration of smart meters in the country is very low. There are several reasons for it. The utility itself has hesitated to install smart meters, which could have contributed in understanding better from the consumer side what these characteristics look like, how much, if there are ways to actually understand at the consumer level at what frequency changes, what appliances are being operated. That is very much possible if you have an integrated offer of smart metering plus that particular equipment, or which could be easily retrofitted on the consumer side. So unless the utilities take the residential segment seriously, and not from the point of view of just cross subsidizing them through CNI customers, time of use will not come in very soon. There has been several years of debate around time of use. So yeah, it's going to be quite difficult unless the regulatory commission also decides that the time of use tariffs are the way to go for residential consumers as well.
Absolutely. So the last, I think, before we go to the questions that we've come from the audience, the last point that I wanted to discuss was that Jamin and I have been working with the KERC and with BESCOM with respect to this ACOS calculations, as you saw. So we realized that, boss, if you have to put 1.2 gigawatt of solar rooftop in the city itself, what does that do to the power that BESCOM already procures? Because BESCOM, unfortunately, from KERC has a mandate to fulfill their long-term PPAs with coal. Now, as think tanks and as a ethical developer like Harsha, we strive towards sustainability, which means like none of us like coal in the long run. But how is a company like this, like BESCOM, going to argue in the KERC code that if you want us to go green and if you want us to get to a 1.2 gigawatt solar target, allow us to stop buying coal-based power because it's not required. So I have extra power which is lying. And Jamin, correct me if I'm wrong. The calculations we showed is that there is, if we have 1.2 gigawatt, then there's a bit of coal power which remains unutilized, right?
Yes. Significant
So
revenue loss has to be there.
yes, so it's a multi-layered question. So the problem is that if so BESCOM ideally should be allowed to cut back on buying coal-based power. Now that will translate to KPCL cutting back on generating coal. Already they are at like 50 or odd percent plant utilization factor, which is killing their finances. So is it a good thing then that we promote the slow death of coal? And if we are doing that, then how do companies like KPCL and other generation companies like NTPC, and NTPC already diversifying into solar. So how do these age-old companies slowly diversify into RE in order to accommodate more green and a more sustainable future? So this is an open question. So Abhishek is on the call. There's Akansha from CEW on the call. So anybody can take the floor to answer this, because this is a very important question that needs to be answered as to how do we slowly phase out coal to accommodate more decentralized and centralized RE.
So if I can answer, Saptak, just from the point of view on the electricity consumption, I've been driving an electrical car for last 6 years. I just got a new E2O. I just got another E2O plus. One is with the office. We drive E2O, we follow what we preach. So we have an electrical vehicle for the office as well as I drive an electrical car. And I tell you, the power consumption of electrical cars is not any less. I mean, it's not any less. And I was actually talking to some of the RWAs recently last week. I was looking at their energy consumptions. Today, none of each individual homes that we have, they can't support the EV vehicles fast charging. Actually, I mean, even 7 kilowatts is not possible with homes. If you have to add all the cars in an apartment complex into EV, which is going to transition already happening. I mean, I know my friends and cousins who already bought EV vehicles, and I think that's going to, whoever I'm sure among the audience, whoever is going to buy a next car, they will be thinking, should I buy an EV car? Now, that power has to come from somewhere. It's not going to come from solar alone. Your roof has its own limitations. And I think NTPC and BESCOM should stop worrying about that, the revenue will be a loss. It might be temporarily glitch for them, but the amount of power requirement also would change. Now, the question is, would I change from coal, the petrol to coal, right? I mean, I'm buying the power from NTPs. Again, that problem is still there. Now, for the transition period, I'm saying that as the EV vehicles are coming, coal does not need to die immediately on tomorrow, right? It's going to be a slow transitionary thing. I think as the EV vehicles are coming, also one other trend that we are seeing is batteries. Lithium batteries are actually have become cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. I mean, we have seen the trend already. India, we have done a few projects and we are seeing that it's very viable today to do it. With the storage in mind and EV in mind, I think the transition for coal to solar is very much possible. I think there's going to be temporary glitches here and there. Those gaps could be filled by ADB. I think we would be in a sustainable future. I don't think we should immediately worry so much about, or at least concerned that tomorrow the revenue losses will be so much that BESCOM will be out of business.
Abhishek, you're on mute.
I'd just like to add to what Harsha has said here. I think he has very rightly pointed out that there may be a glitch, but he doesn't see a long-term problem there. So I'll just like to point out that increasingly we are seeing electrification of demands in all kinds of places. Electric vehicles are a big segment. When the demands come, when the demand comes into the forefront, it will be a big segment. But even if you consider our households, say for example, the kind of, I mean, I remember very clearly at some point of time in Delhi, meters used to be 2.5 kilowatt or 3 kilowatt. Now everybody has a 6 kilowatt or a 8 kilowatt meter, and it is more than doubled. Then you see appliances. Say for example, we are talking about cooling now so much. In future, when cooling not only in residential areas, but cooling is required in, say, in common areas, in office spaces more and more, that is a big demand that is going to pick up. Take, for example, a simple place like a kitchen. We have new things. I mean, microwaves and all, they have come up. So it is all adding to electrification of the energy demand and greening it on the other side. Just like Saptaki pointed out, NTPC has already gone into solar generation. And I'd like to point out that we are also working with the state utility in Karnataka, which is trying to figure out how it will survive in a world where coal is not does not find that favor. And they are also thinking about how they can go into the solar generation. So we have that scenario coming up. And second point, we should not. I mean, it's a time we started delinking utilities, state utilities, especially from coal-based generation, because the time has come when utilities, they are no doubt they have to generate electricity, but even they will start looking for new technologies, cleaner technologies, and definitely solar is something which is going to come up as a big source of generation, along with, of course, then they will need batteries also. So I think overall, I'll support Harsha's point that it is the demand will become more and more energy demand will become more and more electricity demand, and it can be a short-term glitch, but not a long-term problem.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Before we get
Just add one point to that discussion, because we brought up the issue of common area and how that the example that Harsha shared about the impact of the EV load at the common area utility level. So our research in Bangalore actually threw up very interesting results that a large part of the sanction load remains unutilized by most apartment complexes, and that has to do a lot with the sizing at the time of application for an electricity connection. So what BESCOM typically uses is a very standard formula. Based on the common area, what is the the meter square or the square footage of the common area, it just multiplies it by how much will be required based on the typical appliances that you would install, not the energy efficient ones, but what typically you would install, and gives the sanction load. So those changes also need to happen. And when it comes to EVs, Harsha, you're right. I mean, they would not be able to accommodate the fast chargers, but you would notice that in Pune and in Delhi, people are using the common area, just the slow charging ones only, but they are continuing to, tap into the meters for the common area available, and that's actually causing a lot of strife within the common area, within the RWAs, that people are charging their EVs without, paying for it directly. So unless and until it's a combination of both regulatory oversight and long-term view on what our loads are going to be and how they are changing so rapidly. Now we have EVs. Later we might have something else. So are we incorporating that kind of planning in our design, in our system design itself? I think is going to be a big question for the utility.
And also that the other things that you were pointing on, the time of the day, I think the time of the day could actually play a role in EV charging as well. In the night time, when the loads are very less, at Bangalore, I remember seeing the load at 11 o'clock. Shortly, it goes from to 2,000 megawatts. In the morning, it rises to 4,000 megawatts at 7 o'clock. And I think you have these windows where you have this power, but you can't use it, right? I think those things could be encouraged actually with on the EVs as well. Reduce the cost of the power. So a lot of people still go with EVs, right? I mean, you're actually encouraging EVs also to come into play. A lot of wind comes in the night, actually, which gets untapped. Now all those problems could be solved actually with having a holistic approach to energy than just looking at solar as two separate entities.
Right.
I have a small question to you, Sumedha. You mentioned something about zero carbon buildings and green buildings, right? So I have a question regarding zero energy buildings. Why there is no strong push for NZB policies?
Yeah, that's the question that is very something that puzzles us all. But things are changing now. So the last that we heard from the Bureau of Energy Efficiency is that they are coming up with a label for net zero energy buildings, which will be called the Shunya label. That is their effort at trying to create the incentive for developers and therefore also consumers to go for this kind of a building. So we are slowly getting there, but the examples are far too few because it does have to go down with the cost effectiveness of it. Net zero energy buildings are still quite expensive to do because of the technology aspects of it, and the fact that tariffs continue to be low also makes the return on investment far longer, the payback period also far longer. But policy is changing. The label is expected to also push the market in the direction of zero energy buildings.
Any other concern, panelists?
All good, I think.
Then I think we should have questions. Yes. Sir, are you going to assign them or should I do it?
I have assigned it. You just take a look, or let me do it. So the first one, Saptak, is basically I've marked it to you. It's a question by Priyatam Yashaswi.
Okay.
Would like to know how CREST is helpful in deployment of rooftop solar. That to an extent we have explained. With previous experiences of aggregation projects indicating that identification of sites may not be the only issue, but other aspects such as disbursement of subsidy, policy support, etc. may be needed to be looked into. So we have to an extent answered this, but if you want to add on something to this.
Oh, so just to quickly address that part. So nowhere in India has an aggregation effort of a gigawatt been undertaken for rooftop. So the largest so far has been 45 megawatts. So identification of sites for such a huge target has been an issue earlier, but with our tool, it should not be that much because you already know the building beforehand. The second part, as you rightly said, is that disbursal of subsidies and support and all that. So that is why BESCOM is working with us, IDAM, ADB, and some of other partners to create a robust ecosystem with this single window clearance mechanism. So if you're a residential consumer and you sign up for the program either by using our tool, so then what happens is you are linked directly to the panel vendors and to the financing institution which is there for the program, and BESCOM will directly disburse the subsidy to the developers. So you don't need to get into the problem of doing the subsidy yourself. So if you are eligible for if you want a 3 kilowatt system and eligible for a 40% subsidy from MNRE, you will pay 60% of the cost to the developer using the financing scheme available to you. BESCOM will disburse the remaining 40% to the developers. So the subsidy portion and the hassles of getting into webbed tangles with MNRE or others should cease to exist. So as of now, the CREST tool will only be used to aggregate demand and for developers to reduce their customer acquisition time. But in the near future, we hope that with continued support from MacArthur or any other institution and BESCOM and the other partners, we will be able to create a tool which has multi functionalities like access to developers and to finance as well.
Thank you, Saptak, for that answer. Maybe we can take a couple of questions more. One, especially Harsha, to you, especially because you are a practitioner Apart from roof area, strength of the roof is also important. How is there any way to capture this criteria and how important it is? This is asked by Joseph.
I guess this is to Saptak. I think the question is there a way that we can actually look at the strength of the material? I mean, through the, I don't know whether that's possible with the tool, right? What type of material the roof is?
The tool can tell you what material the roof is made up. So the artificial intelligence can be used to identify the material with which the roof has been constructed, but I don't think it will be able to tell you what is the tensile or the strength or how old are the bricks. That I don't know. That is not possible to be determined through the tool. So we can tell you. So the tool essentially should be looked at as first level analysis, because ultimately before installation the developer has to do a psych assessment with the engineering. So at that point of time, I think you'll be able to understand whether the strength of the roof is enough to how much is possible to be installed based on the strength of the roof, right, Harsha?
No, we have, yes, that's what we do. In fact, this tool, what it avoid is avoid one site visit until the negotiations, right? I think we can completely get away with that. After that, absolutely, we have to do a detailed engineering where we need to do a lot of routing of cables. Where do you keep the inverters? So a lot of those details has to be studied, but that could be done at a later stage. Once this area is identified, because if you don't have area, even you can't put panels, then there's no point to even discuss further. So that's good.
Another question that is there from Joseph himself again is the updation of the crest imagery. Saptak, would you like to take on that?
That's a very tricky question, because as you know, we spent a lot of MacArthur's money on just doing the lidar based survey already. So but as the trend goes, every evolving technology, the cost comes down. So we've reduced the cost of capturing aerial images by half using drones. So that's a huge step in aerial imagery techniques for now capturing cities. So the question has been asked by multiple stakeholders before to us, whether it was Credle while Credle was in charge, whether it is BESCOM and also Energy Department. So the answer would be as and when required. We would prefer to do it on an annual basis based on BBMP and BD updates of where new construction has taken place or where trees have been broken down, which is happening unfortunately. So that we wanted to do it on a yearly annual basis. So we have put the proposal to Energy Department, and it is a call that will be taken by them because the cost has to be borne by somebody. So those executive decisions, once they happen, I will be able to give a more honest answer.
And I think I'll just try to add there that for updation, we may not have to undertake the kind of effort that we have taken at this point of time. For updation, you only need to know if say there is massive construction on some particular side of the town, or some new, or there is redevelopment, then I think taking that imagery, updating that imagery makes sense. Otherwise, it will be only small changes here and there. So I think the effort next time around will be much lesser than this.
Yes, that is why I said, sir, that we have to take the inputs from BBMP and BDA to see where any updates have happened, whether it's reconstruction, development, or reconstruction, demolition.
So
there's another question, interesting question, sir. I think it's about the MSME sector from Shreyansh, CPI.
I'll just go back to it. So MSMEs are constrained in adopting solar rooftop under both CAPEX and OPEX models due to the perceived lack of credit worthiness, leading to apprehensions regarding their ability to service loans under CAPEX and their ability to honor PPAs under OPEX model. How can this be resolved through policy action? I think, Shreyans, this is more a question of how MSMEs do their bookkeeping. So it is, I mean, it is the same answer as for a solar rooftop project as for any other project. It depends on how MSMEs, how organized they are, and how well they are keeping their books. Because if their creditworthiness is under question, then it does not really matter whether it's a solar rooftop project or a new boiler or a new say something else. So I think that's a slightly on the different lines, this question. So of course, I mean, it's more to do with the how they keep their books and all, which of course is a larger question, I guess, than this workshop can address. Then we have a question. I don't really understand this question, but I'll still read it out. Can the data of imagery be shown while using the tool?
I think he's asking whether the date of the
Oh,
imagery
date. Yes, sorry. The date of imagery can be showing. Yeah.
Yeah.
The date of imagery is 2018 May, the one which is there now. So we have to take that into consideration.
So I think we are through most of the questions.
Akansha,
We have.
Akansha
Yeah,
second
sure.
answer could not use the mic.
Let me take it out. Akansha has sent something kind of a comment. I agree with the points put forward by the panelists regarding the increasing energy intensity of Indian consumers. In my opinion, it's a choice to meet this demand cleanly and sustainably. And it's true that coal is not going anywhere in near future, but its usage across sectors would definitely change. Hence, the focus should be on reallocating coal among plants to ensure they are operating and generating at technically optimal levels, and the discoms are not burdened by paying the higher fixed costs. Well taken, Akansha, your comment. I think that you're absolutely right in saying that. So, Saptak, I think we are through with the questions.
Yes.
And we have also reached our time. It's 16:01. So I'd like to thank, I'd like to thank Harsha, Sumedha, and Sumati for joining us. Thank you, all three of you, for your the inputs that you gave and the time that you found out to be with us. Thank you, Saptak, and thank you, Jamin. And thanks are also due to those members of the team like Dhruv and Yuvraj, and of course other people who have been in the IT team. If I start naming them, it will be a long process. But a lot of effort has gone into this, making of the CREST tool, the LiDAR mapping first, making of the CREST tool, and then of course this event also. And I like to thank Neha for helping us organize this. And thanks are also due to many persons back at C-STEP I mean, if naming them all is not possible now, but I thank each and every one of you. So thanks a lot again, and thanks to all the people in the audience who have been patient with us, and especially because this was a closed door session. I would I would expect, I mean, if there are any questions unanswered, or if there is anything more that you would like to know, do write to us as crest@cstep.in. And you may already be in touch with Saptak or Jamin or Dhruv or Yuvraj, and do get back to us if there are any questions. I look forward to taking this initiative forward and getting something out of it. Thank you all.
Okay. Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.
Great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.